Oh my goodness. You guys will not believe this. I have been, for the past 51 minutes, doing a Facebook Live video, and Facebook did not record it. I'm trying to see. Once I went to finish the video, it told me the video has to be at least 4 seconds long. And I know I did 51 minutes, y'all. Let me see. I haven't gotten any notifications that they're looking for people. This is strange. Cause y'all, I gave y'all some good. Oh, look at that. You're live. We're building an audience for you. Ah, that's crazy. I'm a woosaw, y'all. I'm a woosaw. Because I've been in here talking to myself for 51 minutes. Because Facebook said that it didn't register. Well, I guess that was my dress rehearsal. All right, 51 minutes of talking about fiscal sponsorship. Hi, y'all. This is Shalita O'Neill, founder and CEO of Fostering Change Network and the founder of the nonprofit Visionary Academy. Today, I apologize. This is about 51 minutes past noon, and that's because I was doing a Facebook video live, and there was a malfunction. There was a technical difficulty, and it ended up that I was talking to myself for 51 minutes. But we keeps it moving, okay? So today, I'm going to talk about what is fiscal sponsorship and how do you get one. I had one of my nonprofit visionary Facebook group members specifically asked for me to go into detail about fiscal sponsorship because I've mentioned it in the past in some of my other videos just briefly, but I haven't gone into too much detail around it. So today, that's what we're going to talk about, all right? So I want to read to you what the technical definition of a fiscal sponsor is, and then I'll go and I like to tweak and ad lib, and and I'll let you know the translation for me. But fiscal sponsorship is a nonprofit organization that provides fiduciary oversight, financial management, and other administrative services to help build the capacity of charitable projects. So there's a couple of reasons why you might need a fiscal sponsor. When I started my nonprofit 8 years ago, I had a fiscal sponsor, and it was heaven sent, right? So while I was waiting on my 501c3 status, they oversaw my accounting, my bookkeeping. They also provided administrative services as well for me for the duration while I was waiting for my 501c3 status. And you may say, well, why do you need to do that? Hey, Ange, hey, y'all. Thank you for joining. Listen, I started it at noon, and then it's technical difficulties, and it didn't register. Y'all got to know how mad I am inside, but we're going to keep it going. But so there's a couple reasons why you might need a fiscal sponsor. So one, you are, again, like I was needing 501c3 status, waiting on my 501c3 status, and I was still in a process of looking for grants, and I actually had a funder that wanted to give me $30,000, but they couldn't give it to me. I had to get a fiscal sponsor. So that, while you're waiting for your 501c3 status, you can accept donations, and contributions, and you can also give people tax deductions on that. So, people, they're willing to give you 20, 30, 40, maybe even $200 without needing a tax deduction. But once you get higher than that, people really, they want that tax deduction, because it's tax time right now anyway, and we finding all little pieces of paper. What have we given? What have we done so we can get some money back? Because that's important. So it's important to people. It adds up. So people who want to give, don't hold it against them. Yeah, we should say, they should just give us money, because why they got to get something? Hey, we can find a win-win situation and everything. So if people wanting to give a little bit more money, they do consider, am I going to be able to get a tax deduction for this? And if they can't, they might just keep it down to, a minimum, because they don't get that incentive. All right. So people like incentives. So that's one reason, as well, that you know, one of the biggest reasons why with fiscal sponsorship is really helpful. But also, you're just starting out. The way you keep your personal books and the compliance issues and all of the different is that's different. You don't have to deal with that. You know, in the nonprofit world, it's a different experience. Your personal budgeting is way different than accounting for a nonprofit, and the things that you need to do, the tax, you know, code that you have to follow, all of that. And so you're new to that. So this fiscal sponsor isn't new to it. They know what the processes are. They know what the compliance is. They're going to help keep you compliant while they keep themselves compliant as well. And in the process, you're going to be learning from them. So when you need to do it on your own, you can do it on your own. Now, another reason may be that you're not even thinking about being a 501c3. You know, you're not into the admin part. The, you know, I got the you want to get to the business of changing the world. You have a vision. You want to work with people. You want to kiss the babies and shaking the hands. And that's okay too. There's some people who just say, I'd rather be a program of another nonprofit organization and let them worry about the oversight and the compliance. Because I'm telling you guys, it's all great. You know, you see from the outside looking in, running a nonprofit, but there's a lot of compliance. There's a lot of processes, statewide, federal-wide, that you have to make sure that you're keeping in line with, keeping your books correctly, that sometimes when you first starting up can take over a lot of your time. And so having a fiscal sponsor in that is very supportive, is very helpful. Some people are planning to get their own 501c3 and have their independence, and some people aren't. And some people get fiscal sponsors for events. I've done that. I'm doing that now. You know, with a conference that I'm doing, I have a fiscal sponsor for that as well, just for the event. And then after that, you know, the sponsorship is no longer in place. But you know, for you as a nonprofit visionary, this is your whole organization. And this is going to take some time. All right. So those are ways or reasons why you might need a fiscal sponsor and why they can be very supportive. They can also be very supportive because some fiscal sponsors, this is what they do, right? You know, they don't provide services, programs, none of that. They just provide the support for people who are running programs underneath of them. And that's what they do. Okay. So, excuse me, they may also be in position to help introduce you to funders or, you know, additional supports that you might need to get your program exposure, right? So just understand that as nonprofit visionaries, you have options, but fiscal sponsors are extremely, extremely important in helping you to get off your feet, right? Or get on your feet and launch, okay? So, another question too, because I'm going to go over some questions that you should be asking, some things you should have in place as you're looking for a fiscal sponsor. But how do you find them is a question that has been asked. And well, one, you might know a colleague or someone who runs a nonprofit organization that is maybe similar or in line with the work that you want to do. Okay, well, reach out to them and ask them if they're open, you know, for fiscal sponsorship. Or you might, again, just do your research online or through word of mouth and find an organization that's what they do. They're a fiscal sponsor and you also do research. Either way, you do research on them. So let's say it's a friend, you know, or a colleague, somebody that you know who's running a nonprofit. Could be big, could be small, right? You want to make sure you vet them. You want to make sure you're looking at, well, are they respected in the community? How do they keep their own books? How do they manage their own business? Because that is going to be who you're going to be dealing with as a fiscal sponsor. So you want to make sure that you start off on the right footing and build the right foundation with the right people, regardless of whether they're a fiscal sponsor or whether, you know, they're a volunteer, whatever it is. But you want to make sure you do your research on them first and foremost, because if they can't keep your book or their books, they're not going to be able to keep your books either. Or, you know, that's your friend, they're running a nonprofit. You're like, how they run that nonprofit? They all over the place. That's not somebody who you want to be your fiscal sponsor. Same thing with an organization that's what they say they do. You want to make sure you look at, well, what types of programs are they fiscal sponsors over? What is their reputation in the community? You ask around, you know, when you have that interview with them or you sit down with them, you ask them a couple questions, which I'll get to in a second. So those are things, you know, different types of ways that you can identify fiscal sponsors. I know for me, part of me starting a nonprofit, and as you know, we talk about this a lot, research, right? You're doing your research, you're planting seeds, you're building your network. So you're talking to people about your nonprofit, and in that, you may identify someone who would be a perfect fiscal sponsor for you. And they might even offer, and in my case, they offered because I had no idea what a fiscal sponsor was. And they were just heaven sent for me because they kept my books, and they, again, the admin support that was there. But part of that process, which when we're transitioning to now, is the agreement. You have to have an agreement in place. And for those nonprofit visionaries who are part of the Facebook group, who are hashtag nonprofit no filter members, I will make sure that I post some examples of fiscal sponsorships in the group. All right, so you'll be able to see that. But regardless of what fiscal sponsor you choose to go with, whether it's somebody who you know in the community who was just offered to you to be your fiscal sponsor, or whether it's somebody or an organization that you had to pursue and find out and that's all that they do, either way, you need to have an agreement in place, a written agreement in place that outlines that fiscal sponsorship relationship. So what they're going to be doing for you, what your expectations are of them and their expectations are of you. Another piece of it is, are they going to be asking or expecting for any admin fees? And some people, a friend may not, depending on what you're doing, might be in line with their mission. It's where their heart is. Or you might be helping them in some way. Maybe you might be providing a training to their population because it's very similar. They may not charge you any admin fees. As I recall correctly, my fiscal agent didn't charge me any admin fees. It was just, we want all your money to go towards your program, and what we're doing to help you is in line with our mission. So that's a win-win. That's a beautiful win-win when that happens. But sometimes there are organizations where this is what they do. They don't provide services. They don't, they don't have their own thing going. They are here to help you. And so they need support for that. If they're offering their staff up, or, they're spending their time keeping your books and filing your paperwork and things like that for you, then there might be an admin fee. So in that case, anywhere from 5 to 15%, is a range, right? Depending on who you're working with. And some people, like I said, won't charge you anything. But for those who do, anything over 15% is, I would say, is a bit egregious, because even when I'm writing grants and stuff and with funders, they don't want to pay more than 15% of what they don't want more than 15%. Sometimes it's not more than 10% of your budget going towards admin support. All right. So if it goes over 15%, it's a little bit too much, but it's a beautiful win-win if you don't have to pay any admin fees. But again, as you're looking at fiscal sponsors and you're vetting them, that's something to take into consideration. But you also, whatever that is, whatever that number is, that needs to be in your agreement. All right, with them. Also, as part of that agreement needs to be, and I'll go into some of the questions, but as you're in this partnership, any intellectual property that you develop, so that you want to sell or further, the work of the organization, belongs to the fiscal sponsor just by default. But if you put in your agreement that, once you actually part ways and the fiscal sponsorship is over, that belongs to you, put that in writing. Put that into your fiscal sponsorship agreement, so that that's in writing, okay? Because otherwise, you go out here and you're selling stuff, that you developed underneath of them, and you didn't get that in writing, then it could be an issue. Maybe not, but you always want to cover yourself. Always want to cover yourself. So make sure that's in your agreement. So if there's anything you get from this video, it's at the center of fiscal sponsorship should be an agreement, a written agreement, okay? Okay, so some of the questions you should be asking, because again, once you find fiscal sponsors, there's some people that you want to vet, and I would suggest that you interview more than one. My thing is, for anything with nonprofit visionaries, is you want to have 3 choices to pick from. All right, so 3 fiscal sponsors, potential fiscal sponsors. You want to interview them. You want to ask them certain questions, and I want to take a moment. If I haven't said it already, your board should be at the center of this, okay? Everything that you're doing, this is a really big decision. It is, you know, at the core, the forefront of what you're going to be doing with your organization. So your board really needs to be involved. They have to be involved. And that's with everything. So I always say that. I'm going to take it back always to your board is the center of the work that's being done. This is around governance. You know, this is around fundraising, accounting of the organization's business. The board needs to be there. Because one thing I don't like us to get into is we don't include the board. You know, we are the nonprofit visionary. We're doing this. We brought this together. We're out here, you know, one woman, one man show. And then down the line, when we actually need our board to come to events or to help us, you know, get the word out about things, and they don't show up or they're not responsive, well, you didn't involve them when it's really important. So involve them from the beginning, because your board or your advisory board, because, you know, until you get your IRS determination, they're your advisory board, is going to need to interact with whoever you choose is going to be your fiscal sponsor, or the board and collection chooses to be your fiscal sponsor. They're going to need to communicate, because with me, with my agreement, my fiscal sponsor came up with an agreement, right? So my board had to look at that agreement. We all had to look at it and see if it was something that we wanted to do. And we went back and forth a couple of times to change and get, you know, clarification on some things. But ultimately, my board president had to sign that document, okay? Because that is their organization. It's our vision. It's their organization. So you want to do it right the first time. And side note, I'm going to do a separate Facebook Live hashtag nonprofit no filter discussion on how to build a board that won't turn on you. And what I will say won't be successful in turning on you, because a lot of us nonprofit visionaries, and some people who would have been nonprofit visionaries but decided against it because of control. And y'all know how I feel about control. You know, I've come to feel about control. You truly do not have control. You don't have control over anything. You have influence over things, not control. But we sort of let that get in the way of, I want my word to be the last word. And if I can't have that, then I don't want no board. I'm going to do a for-profit. If you want to do a for-profit, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if for the sole purpose of doing a for-profit because you don't want nobody to tell you what to do, then that's something else. So we'll do a Facebook Live video on how do you build a board in a way that will thwart people who want to stage a coup, or thwart, you know, board, because there are board members that will rise up against the executive director and kick you out. Okay. And even though you started the organization, that has happened. It does happen. But I want to give some tips on some ways to help prevent that from happening, because I have been in those situations more than once. Okay. So that was a little side note, just so y'all know about the boards. All right. So make sure, you know, that is part of the conversation. You want to make sure you include them. All right. So some of the questions, and I'll recap because I know a couple people joined a few minutes a little bit behind, which not really behind, because I'm behind because Facebook didn't post my original video. But we're going to let that go. We're going to let it go. All right. So some questions that you want as you're vetting and as you're looking for fiscal sponsors, once you identify them, some questions you want to ask them is, one, how soon can my project be sponsored? Because you might have an event coming up, you know, that you need fiscal sponsorship for ASAP, and they might take 3, 4, 5 weeks for the process. So depending on who your fiscal sponsor is, they've got to go to their board. They've got internal processes they have to go through. They have paperwork they have to complete. They have other stuff on their plate. So this may take a process. It may take a while, depending on who your fiscal sponsor is. So that's a question you want to ask them right up front. How long is this process going to take? Because that may determine whether or not you need to look for another fiscal sponsor, or whether, you know, you can wait for their, you know, their process. Also, as we talked earlier, we talked about the admin fees. So you want to ask them, how much do you charge, if anything? You know, how much is your admin fee and what does it cover? Okay. Also, you want to be upfront with the fact that, you know, it may be 6, 8 months before you get your 501c3 status. Be transparent with that, because that may influence the admin rate, or it just may give them a heads up on how much support they're going to need to give you for how long. Because, you know, it might be somebody who it may take 2, 3 months. You know, okay, I could do that, but be upfront, like, listen, in 6 months, I'm working on getting my own 501c3. You know, it may take some time. So just be upfront with what the timeline is, okay, for you, and how, because it can take a moment to get that letter. Also, how much control will their project have over the way your money is spent? Now, just so you understand, this fiscal sponsor, they should have a sub account, bank account, for all of your monies. Anything that's coming through them needs to go into a separate sub account, because they have a lot of compliance. They have to be in line with what the IRS is asking them to do, the way they keep their books. They're being audited. A lot of these organizations, if they're a certain size, they're being audited. So they need to have a separate sub account. All right. But that's just, part of processes. That's what they have to do. As far as the program, they don't have control over how you run your program. If it's within the parameters, and when you have this agreement, you tell them, this is my program, this is what we're going to be doing. Okay, great. You run that. That's your space. They don't encroach on that and tell you how you run your program. Oh, I don't think you should do that. Or I think we should change this vision. That's not their role. That is not, no. But when it comes to keeping your books and your accounting and things, there may be processes that they have in place they have to adhere to for legal reasons. Like, okay, you may want $500 to go towards something for an event or something like that came into that account. They may need you to fill out a form. They may need you to attach a receipt. They may have processes attached to it, and they should, with how do you get the money, or how do you get vendors paid, or so you want to be upfront about, how much control over our money and how things are kept will they have, and what type of control will you have. So you want to be, upfront about that. Okay. You want to ask them that. Also, there's some instances where, let's say you bring in a lot of money and you didn't use it all, and it's sitting in that sub account. Depending on what kind of account they set up, it could be collecting interest. So you want to ask them upfront about that too. Well, what type of account is it? Is there any interest going to be collected on it? Again, just being very upfront. Again, I will post a link to this article, and in the nonprofit Visionaries Academy Facebook group, I'll actually put some of the examples of some fiscal agent or fiscal sponsorship agreements too, for you guys to look at. All right. If you're not a part of that group, again, I will say, go to ShalitaO'Neal.com, sign up as a #nonprofit member, so that you will get access to that Facebook group and some other things that, I have coming up for them. That's going to be really good. So I'll put that there. Also, what services do they provide in addition to accounting? That's a question you want to ask them. Some people, again, they may provide you some admin support. They may, help you with some of the operating processes other than accounting. There's other things that they could be doing. It might be, giving you access to funders or whatever. That's a question you need to ask. What other things can you provide other than accounting, if anything? And maybe they just want to keep it at that. I'll keep your books. That's it. That's okay. That is a huge load off of you, because that's a lot. It took me look, when I was doing my own books initially, it took me 4 hours to code everything, all the checks, the grants that come in. They want the money to be spent in a certain way. They want a certain accounting with it. So this $2.50 went towards this grant, this $3. It could be a lot. So even just with accounting, having a fiscal sponsor is immensely important, okay? And especially, there needs to be a weaning process in that. So once you've already decided who your fiscal sponsor is going to be, then after you get your 501c3 letter, you don't just be like, peace out, thank you, give me my money. No, you have to have a weaning process and for them to sort of coach and mentor you on what does it look like, what are the things they were doing for you, and how is that going to translate into you going to have to do this yourself. You done turn 18, 19, and kick you out the house. And foster kid, it's 21, 18, 21, you gone. Okay, no, we need you to start earlier preparing us to be on our own. Okay, flashback. But anyway, so that's another thing. You want to know what services they provide other than accounting, all right? Then you also, as I spoke earlier about the board members and your advisory board, how are they going to interact with each other? What does that look like? You need to know that, all right? And I think I talked about the intellectual property. So you want to ask them specifically, we've developed some materials that we're going to sell. who owns that property and who will own it if we leave or when we leave fiscal sponsorship. That should be in writing, that your stuff that you develop, that you put your brain and everything into, and you out here beating the streets and beating the bushes for people to give you some funding to make come to life, that should be yours when you leave. But you have to make that very clear in writing in the agreement. All right. And then another question is, will I have my separate bank account? And like I just told you now, you should definitely, that should just be a prerequisite. If you talk to someone, they're like, oh no, I'm gonna put all your money in with my money and we're gonna figure it out. That's not somebody you want to be your fiscal sponsor, because then 9 times out of 10 they're not being compliant with on their end with their paperwork and what they need to do in order to keep their 501c3 status. So there's a balance here, understanding that you're coming in it to do the work, you're ready to get out there, shake the hands, kiss the baby, and they're looking at it as, okay, well, I need to be careful and very calculated around how this partnership looks, because they're legally responsible for the money that's coming in for you. They have to keep everything separate. They have to have accounting. You're going to have to be willing to give receipts, follow some processes in order to get your money and get things paid and such, because they do not want to lose their tax status helping you. Okay. So there's a balance there. Okay. Did anybody have any questions so far around what I've said? Any thoughts, anything they're like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Can you elaborate or anything like that? I'll give you a second to type the question. Do not disturb on here. People trying to make phone calls. If not, I'm going to go back and recap like I normally do. Okay. So again, fiscal sponsorship is so very important. It's so very important. It will allow you to be able to do the work that you need to do without having to worry about the back office things. And, the being able to provide tax ID or tax deductible letters and, that incentive to people who are giving you money will incentivize them giving you more money, right? So you cannot accept those types of, or give that promise that they're going to be able to do a tax deduction if you are not a 501c3. So fiscal sponsorships and fiscal sponsors are extremely important, and they could be, just temporary while you're filing your paperwork and waiting for your information to come back. And so you could be on your own, or some people just choose to have a fiscal sponsor indefinitely while they run their program, because they don't want to worry about the back office stuff that comes along with it. Because ultimately, when you transition on your own, there's things you have to be responsible for. And not that you have to know the ins and outs of every single thing, but you need to know what is important, or what the overview of what you need to know. As far as accounting, you hire an accountant. If you didn't go to school for that, you hire an accountant to do that. You delegate to different people, but you need to know what those things are going to be, because they can be time consuming when you're trying to do it by yourself. Okay, so fiscal sponsorship is really important. I was so thankful for the fiscal sponsorship that I got. And actually, the admin assistant that was with my fiscal sponsor eventually came to work for me. So, and she was a lifesaver. I love her to pieces. And I don't know how I would have done it without her. Because like I said, I was spending 5-6 hours trying to code stuff in QuickBooks. And then she came in and was like, what is this? So when you need help, your fiscal sponsor is there for you. Again, as far as how you look for them, how you find them, there could be somebody that you already know that's running an organization that has come to you that says, I'll be your fiscal sponsor, as for temporarily or whatever. Or you can go out here and look for somebody, or look for an organization where that's what they do. I know in Baltimore, Fusion Partnerships is one of those where, they don't provide programs or services. They, just provide support to organizations that do that, that provide the programs and services. But you look for somebody who has a mission that's in line with what you're doing, right? Because they can provide all sorts of supports. And just knowing that typically they do take an admin fee, because that's what they do. They're offering all these services and things like that. So, that is something that you should be aware of. But with a friend, they may just say, okay, well, no, or, a colleague or somebody, no, I'm not going to charge you any admin fee. It's all good. It's fine. Whatever. I believe in what you're doing. But as part of that, regardless of who you decide to be your fiscal sponsor, you want to do research on them. And you want to make sure that their reputation in the community is one that you agree with, because you're going to be associated with them. You want to make sure that they're keeping their books the way that they should be. If they're messy, running around, you going in the office, stuff all falling off the table, they don't know what nothing that, they can't give you no financial, then how you think your information going to be kept? All right. So make sure that you're vetting people. They may be a friend, or they may be somebody that you worked alongside of that has a nonprofit, but that doesn't mean they need to be your fiscal sponsor. All right. So that's just, things that you want to look for. You want to have an agreement in writing, y'all. Everything. I said, put everything in writing, because even if it's with a friend or a colleague or an associate or someone like that who you're familiar with, things can get cloudy. Things can get mixed up. They can, you can fall apart. I like to talk about Judge Judy because I like her. I mean, she kind of mean sometimes, but she's justified most of the time. Look, on her show, people would just be friends, partners, all kinds of things, fall out because somebody wore something that somebody didn't like. You want to protect yourself from that. You have an agreement that outlines what they're responsible for, what you're responsible for, how much you're going to pay, if anything, for admin fees, who does the intellectual property belong to, which you should write in there, it is ours, what specifically, anything over accounted. This agreement is going to encompass everything. How long is it going to be? Is there a weaning off process? And if so, what does that look like? All of that needs to be in the agreement. And again, I will post samples in the nonprofit no filter, or the nonprofit Visionary Academy Facebook group. So I'll do that. Y'all know I got your back. Okay. So, those are things that you want to have in that agreement. Have that agreement in place, and your board must be a part of this entire process. The advisory board, we call it advisory board because technically until you get the IRS status or notification, they're advisory boards and not board members. But they need to be involved in this because the president is going to be signing this paperwork. Again, this is your baby, this is your vision, but this is their organization, and this is part of governance. And legally, the president or vice president of your board, of your advisory board, is going to need to sign this paperwork with the fiscal sponsor. So the agreement is going to need to be signed by them. So you want to make sure that they are involved at every single step, all the meetings, the vetting, the identification, all of that. So Ashley, your question is it normal for you to have to contact fiscal sponsors, everything up to the need when you need money out of your account? Yes, because when you're talking about as far as the fiscal part, as far as the money, needing to get your money, yes, because that money is being held in their account, in a sub account that has their name on it, and they have to keep track of what the money is being spent on, because they have to report that to the IRS, or when tax season comes around and they have tax documents like the 990 and things like that, and they have an accountant come in, or sometimes they have to be audited, and people will come in asking questions about your account. People are really sensitive about nonprofits and their money and what they do with their money, because it's a public entity and people want to know where their money is. So they may have, there may be a fiscal sponsor that don't really care too much about it, that's kind of loose about it. But I would say that expect to have to go through a process to get your money. So you're not just going to, unless they have agreed, you sign paperwork or whatever, the board is okay with them allowing you to have direct access to to their pretty much bank account. Maybe you get a card specifically for your account, but you still are going to have to fill out paperwork on, what you're doing with that money, how it's being spent. You're going to have to give them receipts and send that stuff in. And ultimately, it's their responsibility to know what's going on with that account. So I hope that's helpful. Now, as far as needing to make decisions about your program and about the work you're doing and maybe the events that you're having and things like that, unless that is something you agreed to do with allow your fiscal sponsor to chime in about, you shouldn't have to go to them about every single thing you want to do. No. Long as it's within, they know what your organization's about. They know, you know, what some of the activities that you're going to be doing. So that's up to you. But the money, and when it comes to the stuff that they have to answer for on your behalf, you should expect the process. Okay? All right, y'all. Did I do any other questions? I do a good job of recapping. Now, fiscal sponsorship, it's an amazing thing, y'all. Okay. So, yeah. So that's what I have around fiscal sponsorship. And again, like I said, I'm going to have another, you're welcome, Ashley. I'm going to have another, a separate conversation next week on the board piece. You know, how do you get the right people in place? And then when you get the right people in place, you know, how do you build that relationship with them so that there's a mutual respect, so that, you know, you can avoid most of the issues that come along with rogue board members. And so actually your question is, how long is the weaning process? And that's up to you. It really is. I think for me, I want to say it was anywhere from, I think it was almost up to almost another year before I was completely weaned off and on my own. Because I was still trying to get this accounting thing, this bookkeeping thing down. Not the accounting piece, because you know you got to hire a CPA, somebody who does that for your taxes and stuff. But for bookkeeping, the day-to-day bookkeeping, like how to use the software, like what you need to be doing, stuff like that. It took a minute for me to feel really comfortable with that. But that is between you and your fiscal sponsor. You know, if there's a, you know, they might be say this after this amount of time you need to go, but the wean process, that should be whatever that is, and we're just calling it weaning. You know, they might call it something different, but whatever that you expect it to be or you want that to be, just make sure it's in the agreement. Okay. And another announcement that I want to make to you guys is that I'm going to be hosting a hashtag nonprofit no filter boot camp come March 25th through the 26th, and it's going to be a 2-day event for those who are looking to get some tangible help and supports with their nonprofit, so that by the time they leave, they're going to have their programs, their services, their budget, the outcomes, all of that they need in order to get out here and start spreading the word and the message around their organization in order to get funders and to get resources and supports. The first day is really going to be about that. The how do you develop your mission, your vision, like I said, your programs, your services, your outcomes, your budget, all of that's going to be in the first day. The second day, it's going to be about more into resource development. How do you raise the funds? How do you position yourself in order to get the funds? It's going to be about branding and storytelling, which is all very important in building your foundation to being a successful nonprofit, right? So if you're interested in that, go to ShalitaO'Neal.com and there's more information on how you can register. Those who are hashtag nonprofit no filter members and who are members of the Nonprofit Visionary Academy Facebook group get to attend at a promotional rate of 50% off of registration. So if you're serious, and only if you're serious, because listen, we're going to have fun. You know, we're going to be real, but we're going to get some results up in here. So if you're really serious about getting that hands-on support, because I know me, like I need to see you. I need to talk to you. I'm a visual person when that's how I was when I started my nonprofit. So being able to, sit in front of someone and get the information and get tangible resources right then and there is important to some people. So if you're serious about that, make sure that you go and you register. Because I'm serious about helping 1,000 nonprofit visionaries start their organizations by 2018. Okay, so hashtag nonprofit no filter boot camp. Go on my website ShalitaO'Neal.com, and y'all check this out. So now I'm gonna be known as AKA the Nonprofitista. How you like that? Like, tell me if you like that. My alias. Okay, because everybody got one. I got one now. So the Nonprofitista is going to help you start your nonprofit, okay, and get connected to the right people. So you guys, it's Friday. It's past noon. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties today, but if anybody has any additional questions, just put them in the comment box and I'll answer them as quickly as I can. Otherwise, you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend, and I will see you on Wednesday for our next hashtag nonprofit no filter conversation. Be blessed, y'all. You like it, Ashley? Yes. The Nonprofitista. Tell the world, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Mwah.